Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to everyone joining us today. My name is Lilian De Leon, representative from the Asia Pacific Group in the Paris Committee of Capacity Building. I would like to warmly welcome you to this event titled Unlock Enablers' Power to Triple Climate Action for an Agile, Sustainable Future. This event is led by Climates and the Universal Versatile Society and co-organized with BRICS Youth Energy Agency or BRICS YEA and the SDG 7 Youth Consistency SDG 7 YC through the PCCB Network. And before we deep dive into the triple climate action, I'd like to quickly introduce you to the Paris Committee on Capacity Building. The PCCB works to address current and emerging gaps and needs in implementing capacity building in developing countries. Additionally, the PCCB seeks to enhance capacity building efforts, including coherence and coordination in capacity building efforts related to climate change. And to support the PCCB in achieving these goals, the PCCB network was launched as a platform to share information on best practices, contribute to the work of the PCCB in fulfilling its mandate, and connect stakeholders engaged in climate related capacity building across sectors and regions. As of today, the PCCB network brings together 413 organizations from 99 countries, all actively engaged in strengthening capacities for climate action. And these organizations have been sharing knowledge, building partnerships, and learning from one another through this vibrant platform. We are truly grateful to members who have been with us on this journey and actively contributed over the years. Your engagement and expertise are what make this network so impactful. To learn more about the PCCB network, and how to become a member, you can access the website. The PCCB network team will send more information on the chat. As countries and stakeholders work to accelerate the transformation of agri-food systems, this session offers an opportunity to reflect on the contribution of global youth climate experts and social entrepreneurs across the energy, agriculture, and finance sectors, and to explore investment strategies that can drive renewables-based climate resilient agri-food systems despite the persistent challenges faced by development partners and developing countries. It offers a space to exchange experiences and explore how targeted capacity building can help overcome key challenges and scale effective solutions across energy, agriculture, and finance sectors. In the name of the PCCB, I would like to thank Catalea and Leo on behalf of the UV Society and Climate's team for collaborating on this event. Thank you as well to our panelists and our audience. Now over to Mr. Vikrant Srivastava, who will be our moderator to kick start the session. Once again, good day to everyone.
Thank you so much, Lillian. It was one of the amazing welcome uh, introductory I have ever, seen. And thank you so much for explaining, especially for explaining the title and who are attending this, that it is not as complex as it sounds. We will have more uh, fun. We will have learning together, and of course, we will learn about how the successful practice that are exist in public-private partnerships, and of course, learning from the youth leaderships, stems women, and other meaningful participants. Uh, my name is Vikrant Srivastava. I'm one of the board member of UVS, co-founder of Lead for Earth, and currently also serve as global coordinator for CYSU Commonwealth Youth for Sustainable Urbanization. And with that being said, I would like to move to our next part of the agenda, introducing the panel. We have so many amazing panel, and I can't wait to, uh, introduce you with all of them, and also, see what are the amazing work they have been doing. And at the same time, for me also, it's also at the same time learning for me. We start with an amazing member of Yango. She's currently serving as Yango point of contact for disease working group. She's also co-founder for Climate Mongolia, working on sustainable management from COP16, uh, 30, 70, and Mongolia. And she's also working on envision our planet, decor with OSS through intensify eco across across border, which is amazing. And there is already a question there. So, what to expect from COP30 and COP17 in the year after 2025 in Mongolia? So, Tesel Meg Utnasan, uh, uh, over to you. And then as we move forward, we'll introduce a panel and then we'll move forward with a presentation. So once again, apologies if there is, misinterpret of the name, and over to you, Tamsil. And I can see, I can also, pronounce you Meg, which is easy and short. So over to you, Meg.
Thank you very much, Vikrant, for the warm introduction. And I would like to greet you all from Mongolia. I'm joining in from Ulaanbaatar, and my name is Selmeg, but I have an international nickname, which is Meg, much easier to be pronounced. And I currently serve as the co-contact point of NDC's working group of Yango, and also work with an NGO called Climate Mongolia. So today I would like to share more about sustainable land management, especially coming in the context of UNCCD COP and the upcoming UNCCD COP 17, which happens to be hosted in my country, Mongolia, in my native country. So I will start by sharing the presentation. To speak today more about is about sustainable land management from a Mongolian perspective, especially coming from a forest background. So first of all, maybe next slide. Could you please go to the next slide? Okay. So first of all, I would like to explain what is sustainable land management. Sustainable land management is the use of land resources, soil, water, vegetation, and animals in ways that meet human needs without degrading the land. So sustainable land management helps us to combat desertification, restore degraded land, strengthen food and water security, adapt to and mitigate climate change, and also protect biodiversity and local livelihoods, especially in vulnerable and rural areas. So why does it matter? Next slide, please. So why does sustainable land management matter? It matters because right now, globally, land degradation affects over 40% of of the global land, threatening the livelihoods of over 3.2 billion people. It is one of the most pressing but silent crises currently. When it comes to my country, the crisis is even more pressing, with over 77% of our land is already being affected by land degradation and ongoing desertification. The main causes of which are firstly overgrazing, which is driven by the growing population of our livestock, which has doubled over the past 2 decades. especially with the global demand for cashmere markets. And this growing livestock puts an immense pressure on our land, which is causing desertification. And the second cause of it is climate change. Currently, Mongolia is warming 3 times faster than the global average. And because of that, natural disaster, droughts, and harsh winter disasters, especially relevant in our country, are becoming more frequent. And the third main cause is unsustainable land use caused by human activities, which are poorly regulated mining activities near water resources, hazardous and poorly managed infrastructure development, and erosion-prone agriculture. They all contribute to land degradation. So this is not just an environmental issue for us. It affects people's lives and livelihoods, especially in rural and pastoralist communities. It is especially very important for us because rangelands and rangelands, they cover over 60% of our country, and they support the livelihoods of over 1/3 of the population. Next slide, please. Thank you. So amidst these challenges, I wanted to introduce what solutions there could be and what solutions are being taken, especially in my community in Mongolia. So firstly, these solutions that I want to introduce are all grounded in local traditional knowledge that are low cost and scalable, and also that are designed to work with nature, not against it. And some of the examples that are being taken in my community is, firstly, for agroforestry, the country has pledged to is now doing a billion tree national campaign, and it with this campaign it pledged to plant and nurture over 1 billion trees by 2030. So this is one of the most ambitious solutions that the country is taking. However, when it comes to locally driven solutions, one of the major actions that are being taken in our community is reviving native trees such as sectoral in the deserted areas, which is also grounded in traditional knowledge. And these reforestation efforts are helping to halt the spread of desertification while restoring fragile ecosystems. Another solution is based on Mongolian traditional pastoralist knowledge, which is centuries old, and it has been practiced by nomadic communities. What it does is that nomadic herders, when they manage their livestock, they do it in a rotational manner, meaning that every season they would they would rotate their livestock from one location to another, so the land have the time to regenerate. So this is the main, I think, solution that is being implemented by the entire pastoralist community, and which is rooted in centuries-old tradition. I think this is one of the clearest examples of one that uses indigenous and traditional knowledge. Another solution is, of course, about local communities using indigenous knowledge of native plants. They one of which is having seed banks for native grasses, So herders across Mongolia are collecting and saving drought-resilient grass seeds, such as feather grass and wild rye, and they use these seeds to replant degraded areas, restoring native vegetation and ensuring the land that can regenerate. These are some of the examples that are being implemented in our country. Thank you. Next slide. So connecting it to the UNCCD COP 16 experience, I would like to firstly mention that first of all, it was it was a very important milestone for UNCCD, being it the largest the largest COP, UNCCD COP to date, and the main achievement milestones that it was able to achieve through COP was that countries, they pledged to 12 billion US dollars for land restoration and drought resilience, which was already a huge step. And another step that is especially relevant for my community was that it was the first COP to formally recognize rangelands and pastoralists. And another milestone was, of course, the establishment of the indigenous peoples and local communities. And it was also a COP that connected a huge number of private sector initiatives through the Business for Land initiative. Next, please. So lastly, the UNCCD COP coming to my country, what we hope to see is that, firstly, because it is a UNCCD COP that will be hosted in the region for the first time, in the Northeast Asian region, it will bring a lot of attention, global attention to the land degradation, desertification issue to the Asian region. So this is in itself already a big step. And another key highlight of this COP is it coincides with the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists. So it would be a really big opportunity, not just for Mongolia, but for the global community to highlight the role of pastoralist communities, indigenous groups, and dryland communities, especially given that the year itself is recognized as the International Year of Rangelands. So what we anticipate to see at COP 17 is the adoption of a global drought framework, which includes early warning systems, climate insurance, and resilience finance, a push for stronger land governance, especially for women, youth, and indigenous communities, and global investment in community-driven restoration solutions. So these are some of the anticipations that we have. And next slide, please. So what I, as a climate advocate, I want to see is looking ahead. I really hope there would be more scaling up for investments in community-based land restoration and restoration initiatives, more support for youth and women as restoration leaders, and integration for restoration commitments into the COP30 agenda as well, and also bridging traditional knowledge with science and policy. So thank you so much for giving me the floor, and that is all from my side.
Thank you so much, Meg. That was really amazing presentation and so much to learn apart from, the sustainable land management I learned a lot about the country also. I'm also looking forward personally to visit Mongolia, hopefully next year for the COP16. And some of the really, really, very strong point that we drive from this is, of course, the funding that has been channelized should be also look into supporting the land restoration. Uh, we have a lot of questions for you, Matt, but I will keep that on hold for the Q&A session. And if anyone feels that to have something that they want to ask, feel free to drop us in the chat. We'll take that from there, and then we'll try to put it together all and take it during the Q&A session. Moving on to next, our amazing speaker. Uh, he's currently the assistant chairman of BRICS Youth Energy Agency, and I will give him the floor to share more about what exactly this agency works. He was also the COP 29 Arctic Pavilion coordinator, and I was also one of the fortunate member to organize one of event at the Arctic Pavilion. So thank you for providing the space for a lot of member like us. Uh, So please join me in welcoming Arseny Kirzizov Barshik. And again, apologies for if there is a misspell in the name. And the floor is your Arseny. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Vikrant, and thank you, Katalea, and all other participants of this amazing event who also have contributed to the Arctic Pavilion agenda COP29 and also are organizing this wonderful event today. To introduce myself a little bit, I would like to switch to the next slide. Yes, so the BRICS Youth Energy Agency is a recognized BRICS institution, also working with the UN bodies and with the climate agenda. Since 2021, we have been participating in UNFCCC COPs in the sphere of organizing the program of different pavilions, including the pavilions of BRICS countries. And since 2024, we have been organizing our own pavilion with our partners. I will tell a little bit more about that. But the key the key focus of our work is the research in the field of energy and climate and all the related fields. Please switch to the next slide. Yes, so there are different projects that are directed to research in this energy, climate, and related fields, including agri-food systems. And here you can see some of them. One of the most important project that we have been working on since 2019 is the BRICS Youth Energy Outlook. The next slide. BRICS Youth Energy Outlook is groundbreaking research done by the youth from BRICS countries and the countries of the Global South, which actually represent so-called BRICS Plus community. And the research that BRICS countries use is doing is being delivered exactly directly to the ministers of BRICS countries, to energy ministers at the ministerial conferences of BRICS, and also presented at the UNFCCC climate conferences regularly, so that we ensure this interlinkage between youth expertise and the decision-making processes. Next slide. The BRICS Youth Energy Outlook has been developed since 2018, now accounting for over 500 youth experts. And in 2024, we have introduced a new concept of developing the Outlook. Next slide. this new concept is based on the young expert groups that we have established within BRICS Youth Energy Agency. And I'm really happy to see here at this meeting some of our leading experts from these expert groups, including Katalea, who has been a secretary of the International Policy Advocacy Working Expert Group. And one of the expert groups has been working exactly on the topic of our today's meeting, the sustainable agri-food systems. We have also researched on green jobs, international partnerships, nuclear energy, businesses, resource management, and of course the energy transition. And all these topics are interconnected. It is of course important that the sustainable agri-food systems are being developed based on renewable energy sources and resilient practices using innovations. So we tried to see these interlinkages between different topics. And in 2024, we have published the BRICS Youth Energy Outlook that included a chapter developed by the Sustainable Agri-Food Systems Expert Group, Young Expert Group. We presented these findings at the BRICS Youth Energy Summit in Moscow, Russia, and then in Baku, Azerbaijan at the UN Climate Conference. And please switch to the next slide. I'm going to delve into the sustainable agri-food systems topic and findings of this groundbreaking research. Here on the slide, you can see the QR code that will lead you exactly to the BRICS Youth Energy Outlook 2024. So that you can see chapter number 3 is dedicated to sustainable agri-food systems. Please switch to the next slide. Yes, so the findings showed that the areas that are relevant to the BRICS countries in the sphere of sustainable agri-food systems are food security and sustainable development goals. Then how the international regulations and government policies help to shape the sustainable agri-food systems, how climate change is challenging this sphere, and how to adapt to the changing environment. Food loss and innovations are other sectoral topics within this area. Next slide. According to the reports that have been studied by our young experts, BRICS nations are accounting for about 1/3 of global agricultural output and are key to achieving UN SDG 2 and hunger by 2030 through sustainable food systems. This can be achieved by using different instruments. First of all, government policies supporting small-scale farmers, public investments, and of course, cooperation between different sectors and between different countries. So there are some key elements that already have been developed within BRICS that has grown from 5 countries in 2020 to around 10 countries nowadays, with 5 countries who joined BRICS community in 2024 and 2025. Now the community of 10 countries and young people of these countries can develop joint actions. And for example, there is an action plan on agricultural cooperation within BRICS and BRICS agricultural research platform that help to develop these instruments and policies and scientific data to develop sustainable agri-food systems. So international cooperation that BRICS is actually amplifying is key. Next slide. There are, of course, challenges to the agri-food systems in BRICS, who are particularly vulnerable to changing climate. The findings showed that for example, global South countries, the extreme temperatures are destroying and disrupting food supply chains. Therefore, there are some practices that can be developed by BRICS countries and the global South countries who are partnering with them to promote climate resilient food systems. And in the report that the Sustainable Agri-Food Systems Young Expert Group developed, they actually studied different best practices and made an analysis of these practices, a scenario analysis, how these practices could help to shape the future of sustainable agri-food systems. So they found out that coordinated national and international actions, including policy incentives and strong governance, are essential to ensure sustainable agri-food systems under the increasing climate pressure. Next slide. Yes, they developed different recommendations that are key to our BRICS Youth Energy Outlook. These recommendations have been delivered directly to the energy ministers of BRICS countries and will again be heard by them at the next BRICS Youth Energy Summit, the 7th summit that we are organizing together with Brazilian BRICS pro tempore chairmanship in Brasilia, Brazil. I will tell about it later. Here you can see the key recommendations that our young expert group has developed last year and that we communicated to the ministers, and will continue to advocate for these recommendations further to achieve UNSDG 2. It is climate adaptation and mitigation policy, circular economy, transition, technological collaborations, integrated policy frameworks, and knowledge sharing. Next slide. Yes, so as I said in the beginning, I have been coordinating the program of the COP Arctic Pavilion. There, we highlighted different practices all around the world, not only in the Arctic, in different spheres to how to adapt to changing climate. And the Arctic is the region also covered by BRICS countries that is particularly vulnerable in the sphere of climate change, because it is also changing 3 times, 4 times faster, as the previous speakers from Mongolia also said, than the rest of the world. And therefore, there to build resilient agri-food systems is especially difficult, as in some mountain areas and so on and so forth. So in the on the platform of the Arctic Pavilion, which is important for young people, we try to highlight the role of young people there and invite as many youth organizations as possible to present their initiatives. We also try to draw attention to some indigenous practices in this sphere, to partnerships and cooperation. Next slide. Yes, here you can see the key messages that we've brought from COP29 Arctic Pavilion in Baku, Azerbaijan, and we will try to continue our efforts towards this cooperative project in Brazil at COP30, and then after wherever the COP31 will be organized. Next slide. Next. Yes, so here you can see the key platforms that are developed by the BRICS Youth Energy Agency to deliver the messages from young people in different sustainable energy sectors and related spheres, like sustainable agri-food systems, to decision makers. The main platform is, of course, the BRICS Youth Energy Summit. You can see that there are 7 summits organized. The 7th will be held in Brasilia on June 9th and June 10th. And there we are going to start a new cohort of young expert groups with a little bit changed topics, but sustainable agri-food systems as one of the priority topics for BRICS nations will be definitely included there. We have been working on sustainable agri-food systems together with UN organizations and bodies like Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, World Food Program, and experts who are participating in our research represent not only their nation states, not only the educational institutions and universities of BRICS countries and Global South countries, but also some international organizations like those I mentioned. And at the 7th BRICS Youth Energy Summit in Brazil, we are going to start the new chapter for the BRICS Youth Energy Outlook, which is going to be the 6th edition. And therefore, stay tuned about the news from Brazil that we are definitely going to publish on our social media. And you can probably yourself join our BRICS Youth Young Expert Groups, the next cohort, and contribute to this research. You can join BRICS Young Expert Group also if you don't represent BRICS countries, but can have a vision for the developing world and have expertise in a particular sphere like agri-food systems. Next slide. Yeah, so with this, I would like to thank you all for your attention, and you can scan here the QR code to connect with me on LinkedIn. I will be happy to share with you any knowledge from the 7th BRICS Youth Energy Summit and, of course, the BRICS Youth Energy Outlook that you can read on the BRICS Youth Energy Agency's website. Any questions can be directed to me or to our secretariat at this email address that you can find on this slide. Thank you so much, and thank you again for organizing this wonderful event under the auspices of UNFCCC.
Thank you so much, Arsenine. First of all, great job by the team, whoever was part of designing the outlook, setting up the priority. I know that this required a lot of effort and putting together in volunteering capacity, hours of work. Really hats off to you guys, and then bringing something that can serve as a polity document, as a reference document for our young people to go ahead with them and advocate on behalf of it. It's very important. Thank you for, and congratulations for all of the work that has been put together to bring this. And maybe I will also request you to provide the virtual link of the document over the chat so that they can have an access directly. And if there is any question directed to the amazing presentation that Arsene has given, please do share in the chat, or also directly to Catalia or Arsene, and we take all of those questions in the end of the session. So thank you once again, Arsene. Now we've moved to our next speaker, Hatiza Abdul Mumini. She is currently serving as a global focal point for SDG 7 Youth Constituency. And what does exactly the Youth Constituency 7 does, she will come and explain more about it. She's also the co-chair of IRENA Youth Council and member of IEA Global Commission on People's Central Clean Energy. So without further ado, delay, I will request Hatiza to please come and take the floor. The floor is yours, Hatiza.
Thank you very much, Vikrant. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. It's an honor to join you in this discussion on unlocking enablers for a resilient, renewables-driven agri-food system. Thank you so much to the organizers, PCCB Network, Climate TV Society, and Catalia for the invite. So today I'll be sharing insights on the relaunch of the SDG 7 Youth Constituencies Youth Sustainable Energy Hub, which is our platform to mobilize youth-led climate finance and technology solutions. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the Youth Sustainable Energy Hub was relaunched in this 2025 as a dynamic platform that would equip young people to enable them bridge that gap between the financing aspect, the mentorship aspect, and then the capacity building aspect. So our aim is to mobilize climate finance and smart technologies to transform local economies. Next slide, please. So here in the next slide, you'd see a brief about what the SDG 7 Youth Constituency is. So the SDG 7 Youth Constituency is the UN official youth group on sustainable energy. We work under the UN major group for children and youth to promote youth engagement in energy policy and implementation. And the Youth Sustainable Energy Hub is our flagship program. And this year it was revitalized primarily to close those critical gaps in terms of access to climate finance and scalable technology. Next slide, please. Okay, so briefly, the relaunch responds to the urgency of global goals, the ones set from COP29 to COP30, the Paris Agreement, and the respective national climate commitment by respective countries. So what we've done is we've sharpened our focus to target high impact areas, and one of them is the agri-food system. So when you go to the platform, I'm going to be leaving the link, you'd see that in some of the major groups, we have about 4 projects that are on sustainable agriculture. And the aim is to build stronger pillars to support youth-led change. So I'll be taking you through some of the core pillars that we have for the Youth Sustainable Energy Hub. Next slide, please. So some of the core pillars we have for the Youth Sustainable Energy Hub are: 1, policy advocacy. What we aim to achieve is to connect those grassroots projects, grassroots voices with global decision makers. And then secondly is climate finance mobilization to equip youths to access green funding. So like I mentioned, the 3 major areas we are focusing on are mentorship, capacity building, and financing. So in the capacity building, we are also going to have models that would equip youth in terms of how to access this green funding that are readily available, accessible, but then otherwise youth would know how to access it. But then with this capacity building trainings that we have is going to ensure that they know how to access these fundings. And then thirdly is smart tech deployment. So we are trying to bridge the gap between bring together localized and innovative solutions from communities that would also be able to improve their impacts globally and also at their own community level. And the knowledge sharing. So through the hub, you see there's also exchange of learning from the respective projects that are showcased on the platform. So in total, we have 30 projects that are showcased, and 4, like I mentioned, are on sustainable agriculture, and I'll be taking us through it. So these youths are able to also do knowledge sharing among themselves, and also it's a learning platform for them. Then youth action also, which is to support the implementation through mentorship and collaboration. Next slide, please. Thank you. So one of our urgent priorities is enabling you to integrate renewable energy into agriculture. And this approach helps to build climate resilience while also contributing to national goals under SDGs 2, 7, and 13. So the focus is especially on empowering rural and off-grid communities, and this would also be actively taken into consideration. Next slide, please. Okay. So next slide, too. Okay, yes. So these are the 4 projects that are showcased on the hub that are on sustainable agriculture. We have 2 from Indonesia, 1 from Nigeria, and 1 from the United States of America. So the Alira Alura is a project that is based in Indonesia, and what they do is they turn a plant called Lera plant into a co-product like pesticides and water purifiers. So basically natural farming products from the Lera plant. Then the second one is a biomass project. It's based in the USA. It's called Green Revival. So what they do is they transform invasive plants into sustainable carbon negative biomass. So eco-friendly biomass from invasive plants. Then the third project is the solar milking machine, which is a project that is based in Nigeria. So it's a solar powered dairy technology, and it's also provides the off-grid solutions to farmers, and is also quite affordable. Then the third one is the Terragin. It's also a project that is based in Indonesia. So it's a powered light traps that cut pesticides use and boost crop yields. Next slide, please. So you see that these innovations are not just climate smart, they are actually practical, they are affordable, and they are also scalable. So for instance, Alira Alura has reached over 20,000 youths, and the solar milking has the solar milking machine has empowered rural farmers. Terragen has reduced pesticides by over 40%. And then when you look at this respective project, you get to see that youths, when they lead, the impact actually multiplies. So next slide, please. Thank you. So in terms of the lessons and opportunities and what is next for us, what we've seen is that technology must match the local needs. It has to be low cost, affordable, and then it should also be off-grid. Then youths need more than just inspiration. They need financing, they need mentorship, capacity building, and the design needs to be holistic. So there's need to integrate both the environment, the economy, the education, among others. So what is next for us in the hub is there's need to invest in the youth innovation to scale it through partnerships. And I have to say that for us at the SDG Summit constituency, this hub, the Youth Sustainable Energy Hub, is working because of partnership. So from previous cohort to this cohort, you see partners supporting from IEA, IRENA, SC for All, REN21, UN Energy, UNIDO, UNDP. So it's with the support of partners that you see we are able to provide the support that we do to this diverse youth project. So it's very important that through partnership, there's need to now ensure that youth are at the table when energy and the agricultural policies are being designed. Next slides, please. Okay, so in terms of mobilizing finance and enabling the impact, there's need to bridge the finance gap to connect the youth-led. This is one of the core things that we are actively working on, that need that is there for youth-led projects to be partnered with diverse funding partners, be it public, private, multilateral, and then to train youth on the access to green finance, a bankable proposal development. And this is all provided in the curriculum for our capacity building trainings. And the project, the cohort for this one, it's for 6 months and it will end in October. And then secondly is to drive innovation and then access. So we promote affordable smart tech solutions. So with this project, when they have that visibility, they're able to partner, and then these very important technologies that they've provided would be able to be scaled and reach respective communities that need it most. Next slide, please. Okay, and then also in one of the criteria while doing the assessment in admitting the project that will form part of the hub, one thing that we had in mind was to also ensure that there's a diversity, that women-led projects are also part of the hub. So that was one thing we did, specifically support women in energy, and as one of the key areas is agri-tech, also in agri-tech, to also allow them benefit from this project. Then shaping policy and build coalitions. We, of course, advocate for stronger policies that include youth ideas in energy governance so that people, ideas, resources are all connected and maximum impact is achieved. Next slide, please. Okay, so the Youth Sustainable Energy Hub, as we look ahead, this is a call to action, and what we are doing is we're inviting everyone to join us so that we'll build a just and inclusive agri energy system that is powered by youth. Let's triple the renewables and boost the resistance. Let's do it. And then in terms of if you have more questions or you would like to be part of the SDG Summit constituency or you'd like to connect, our website is on this last slide, and also the email address where you can ask questions is available. So thank you so much, and happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much, Hatiza. That was really amazing presentation, and especially all of those project and innovation ideas that you are, already applying, and that's really relevant to other part of the Asian country and in context. So definitely there is a lot of learning, and then learning from these innovations and the case study that you have already presented, and some can be not replicated exactly, but they can fit to the same environment in other part of the world and in Asia Pacific for specifically. Thank you again, and congratulations for all the amazing work that you have been doing. And I look forward to connect with you and then learn more about some of the stuff that you will be doing across the year in coming. So thanks again, Adiza. And then with that said, we look forward for some of the questions that they might have already arisen for you, and then looking forward to some of the questions that are in the chat, and if people want to ask you during the Q&A session. And then with that said, we have the last speaker for the panel one, an amazing innovator. She's working as innovation development manager at SA Power Network, which she will come and share more about what exactly the network does. She's also Global Shaper Advisory Council founding member of US IVLP 2023 and Australian TFAT New Colombo Plan 2050 alumni and Irina and WEF Summer Davos 2024 youth delegate. And with that said, please join me welcoming Michelle Howey. Michelle, the floor is yours.
Hi, folks. I love that Arsene was talking about COP 29 and COP 30 this year. Hopefully, COP 31 is going to be here in South Australia in Adelaide, where I am. I just want to check that you guys can see my screen that I'm sharing. I should say have a picture of a tractor. Yeah. Okay. Great. Perfect. It's past my bedtime in Adelaide here in South Australia, but I'm really glad to be here with you guys and excited to talk about energy, which is one of the things I'm most passionate about. And I'm going to be sharing a little bit about what's happening here in South Australia, so you can get to know a little bit more about us and what I think we should be most famous for, which is our electricity network. So I work at the local distribution power company in South Australia. So we're the poles and wires company, the poles and wires that distribute electricity. We don't have generation and we don't have retail relationships with customers, but actually the role of the distribution network, the role of the poles and wires operator has changed a lot over the last few years, especially because in South Australia, rooftop solar is actually our largest generator in the state. So I have also been part of the IRENA youth delegation as well, like Hadiza, and in the International Renewable Energy Agency Assembly last year, I learned about the UAE consensus that in COP28 in UAE, the world agreed to triple renewable energy capacity and double the global average annual rate of energy efficiency by 2030. And that got me really excited and thinking about how do we actually do that and how are we actually doing that already in South Australia. So if you look at our country in Australia, we have a renewable energy target of 82% by 2030. And as of last year, we were at about 39%. So still a long way to go as a country. But South Australia is one of the states in the country, and we have a goal to be 100% net electricity generated by renewables by 2027. So while Australia doesn't have a 100% renewable energy target yet, we've got one that's only a few years away. And as of last year, South Australia had 72% of their annual average needs met by net renewable energy. Now, the interesting thing is those 72%, that's almost all wind and solar. And so that makes us the grid with the highest variable renewable energy in the world. So there's a few other places that have more renewables, but they're dispatchable and more dependable renewable sources. But we rely on the wind and the sun. Luckily, it's sunny here mostly. When you look at the International Renewable Energy Agency and what they think the urgent action pillars are to actually achieve tripling renewable energy capacity goals, the key one I pick out is modernizing and expanding the grid infrastructure. And that's what I want to talk a bit about today, and about how the multi-stakeholder collaboration underpinning that is going to help with energy transition. So I talked about our variable renewable energy. We closed the last coal plant in South Australia in 2015. Now, since then, there's been a lot of investment in rooftop solar systems, and now more than 44% of the homes here in my city and in our state have solar on them. And that's also the highest levels of rooftop solar per person in the world. That means that rooftop solar, actually, the installed capacity is the largest generator in the state, but it causes a lot of challenges because this solar is actually owned by people, by customers, and it's put on their roofs. And unlike solar farms or wind farms, you don't have a handful of big organizations managing them. So we're actually having situations where there's too much solar on our grid, that the supply of generation is far exceeding demand and causing grid instability and system security issues and even blackouts in some cases. That was about 10 years ago, but now we've really modernized our grid system so that we can manage the supply and demand in real time with dynamic flexible exports. And there's some of the programs that we've been working on as the distribution network, as the poles and wires. At the same time, we're seeing widespread electrification. So the reason why we have to triple renewable energy capacity globally is not just to replace the fossil fuels that are already there today, but also to make up for the massive electrification agenda happening and the rise of new energy requirements, including things like electric vehicles, but also data centers and other green hydrogen and other exciting things that need electricity. As a network, we can't, I guess the easy thing to say would be that we would just go and build more network. We've got all this solar, all these EVs, let's go and build a bigger network. But actually we've calculated that would cost over $1 billion over the next few years. Not only could, it's not really fair for customers to pay for that, it also, we aren't even able to upgrade the network that quickly. We don't have enough people or equipment to do that. This is another view of South Australia's electricity usage over 7 days at the start of the year. And you can see what variable renewable energy really does. We have at some times of day more than 100% of our needs met by renewables. We export the rest, we send it to Melbourne. And then a few days later, less than 4% renewables. It's dominated by gas and imports from other states. So having that volatility of energy supply really is a challenge that we're dealing with, but it's something that we're seeing first and we're solving here in South Australia. So I talked about how we're dealing with it. The first thing that you wouldn't want to do is just go and upgrade the network for, spend billions of dollars and spend lots of time. The other option is to restrict the growth of renewable energy. So in other parts of Australia, there were rules that anyone who installed solar, from that point in time was not allowed to export to the grid. But that's not very useful or helpful or fair. So we've built technology and offers and programs to allow solar and electrification to fit within the current network. And this is the key, it's demand flexibility. And this is when people talk about modern grids and smart grids, they're really talking about efficient use of demand flexibility, where we're incentivizing the new loads to shift out of the peak time, and we're incentivizing generation to be stored and used later. Actually, when I started in the industry 2 years ago, large batteries were contributing only 0.1% to South Australia's energy demand. And now at some times of day, it's over a quarter of our load is met by batteries in the state, which is pretty incredible and only continuing to grow. And a lot of the solar and wind that we're looking at here is, we call it agri-solar and agri-wind. So you're pairing, solar farms, especially in places in Australia where it's very dry, where we have lots of droughts and it's too sunny. Solar farms can actually provide shade where you can grow tomatoes or have more grass or graze cattle and sheep. So it's been really helpful. In order to manage rooftop solar and have the programs that allow us to stop the need to expand the grid, there's a lot of collaboration that's needed, and a lot of incentives. So we need to make sure that customers are being paid fairly and can access the grid fairly. And I think my final slide is just a couple of projects that we've worked on here in South Australia, or that we're currently working on. And I've got links to all of those that I can put into the chat as well. Probably the first one is a key. We're working on in homes that have a lot of rooftop solar, but also electric vehicles and batteries. How are they actually contributing to the grid? And I guess my key message here is that to triple renewable energy capacity around the world, it takes all of us. So we're just one grid, part of one country in one region in the world. and we're looking at individual homes and what each of those homes can do. But if everyone does their best and we have these programs that can scale, then that's the only way we're going to achieve these massive goals. So that's my 8 minutes of presentation for today. And yeah, I look forward to getting to know you guys a bit more and hopefully seeing you in Adelaide at COP31 in a few years.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Amazing presentation, and hats off to all the effort the work has been doing. I have especially learned a lot of work, especially on the energy from this session. Especially really love whatever works you have been doing, and something that really struck to my hand that all of the speakers are young, but they are not really, in terms of people, what we say in our terms, they're not walker, they are runner, they are on an advanced level, and something which inspire me as an individual to work more and share this across. And hopefully, if everything goes well, we will be able to visit Australia next year, COP31. It's all dependent upon the secretarial and the parties to decide. But thanks again. And with that said, we have come to end of our panel 1. But again, we'll consolidate all the questions together and come back after the panel 2 to take forward from there and then reply back to some of the amazing presentation that they have shared, some of the questions that is still to answer. But do feel free to share of your thoughts in the chat itself if you find there is something that amazing that you might have been already doing and there's something that is already go-live. Do feel free to drop that in the chat, and we'll hopefully able to share all of the presentation to people, those who are attending this session. So thank you again, and over to Catalia.
Hello, Nairo. You are on mute. Sorry.
You're mute. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. As Vikrant said, we are going to learn together. We're going to evolve together, but above all, we're going to collaborate together. So my name is Nyar Ronjamiarsu, and I'm the Executive Director of Climate Madagascar. It's an honor to greet you from the majestic island of Madagascar. And without further ado, let's get down to a topic that's just as important as the first one. We're going to talk about bankable projects and multi-stakeholder engagement to strengthen the implementation of national climate pledges in developing countries and modeling the sustainable future to realize intergenerational fairness. So I would like to welcome Mr. Imran Zahour, who's the project director of Khyber Pass Economic Corridor connected to IDA World Bank. So, Mr. Imran, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I want to start first with the little bit of an introduction on the work I do. I want to keep it within 8 minutes so that I don't take up too much time. But so what I'm working with is I'm the project director for a CAPEC corridor. Now, what CAPEC is the CAREC, Central Asian Regional Economic Cooperation Network. What this network does is lay 2 transport corridors across Central Asia and South Asia, connecting both. It's necessarily an economic corridor, which means we are going to create a transport corridor, and the intention is to convert it into an economic corridor. For this topic specifically, my areas sort of rest on the nexus of Pakistan's pledges that have been made to reduce, almost 50% reduction in projected GHG emissions. And this is a 15% reduction is natural, what we're expecting, but 35% is conditional on international financing. And today I want to give you an idea of how to convert these pledges to sort of progress and bankable projects. A lot of it requires multi-stakeholder engagement. in my position, working as the project director for an IDA-funded project, there have been attempts made to somehow, through our MRV provisions, get in a one way or another financing secured through IFC, through different branches of the UN, through even the government, for smaller projects and larger projects to be funded by these areas. So without further ado, I'd just go to the next slide. Next slide, please, for anyone who's sharing. Yeah, so speaking from the get-go, what makes a project bankable? These days, we see that there is a lot of things happening around the concept of, reduction in, emissions. We are also talking about reducing our carbon footprint. But what actually makes these ideas implementable on the ground, we first need to identify a local need. The local need is that the project needs to be technically sound. What we're aiming for over here is certain proven solutions. Our previous panel, they discussed certain implementable solutions. You've gone through them. These ideas are proven and these outcomes are measurable. Why are these outcomes measurable? Are the last step of how we make a project bankable. When we say financially viable, the initial investment comes in for the project. For example, in my case, this specific corridor project is being funded by the World Bank with the expectation that it is going to reduce emission as well as provide economic benefits. With a 12.5 economic internal rate of return, we're speaking of a project that is very, very much feasible when it comes to actual implementation on the ground. The third step for this, when it becomes financially viable through your commitments, is to align it with the climate targets. Like I said before, Pakistan these days is committed to almost 50% reduction in the greenhouse gases emission, and 35% of this is conditional on international grant-based finance. Just to put the number out there, it's around 101 billion US dollars that are needed to achieve this by 2030. We are close to it, and this sort of a funding flows in if your project is aligned with climate strategies and with international standards. What I want to identify over here is the last step, which has materialized after Bali Declaration, and it has been almost 20, well, give or take 20 years now, that we have committed to creating MRV projects. These includes projects that can be monitored, that can be reported, and the verification can be done by the third party. Now, there are a lot of examples to quote. For example, a bigger one, a larger one that I personally like is Colombia's BRT system, the bus rapid transit system that is using this to secure financing. There is one running in the New York City, which measures footprint. All of these require advanced GIS tools that are actually used to measure these emissions. And based on that, actually on this measurement, we have in Europe now a system that can actually calculate how much carbon footprint you can shift and sort of apply for financing for that for. So if you have these areas covered, there's this high level climate ambition that we sometimes talk about. If they can be covered through smaller organs, we are talking about finances flowing in and communities that are actually taking ownership of the project. Next slide, please. These are certain numbers from what we have done through our multi-stakeholder engagement, which is the second pillar of how to make projects bankable. Our multi-stakeholder engagement throughout our whole process, starting from 2021 up until now, has given us actual dividends on the ground. Not only do we go to localized ownership through this multi-stakeholder engagement, but we also increase our inclusivity. The trust and the confidence that we build in the communities, it helps us a lot in continuing the project, in actually supporting through thick and thin the project's positive and negative aspects whenever it comes along. With regards to the CAPEC project that I am leading, the community has been at the forefront. The benefits of this project are distributed across economic corridors, across 4 countries as of now, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and it all the way connects to Dushanbe. So 4 countries in total are actually aiming for this project. to produce those dividends. And our aim is that through this we can actually create sort of a understanding with the communities as well, that it is their property in the future that is going to benefit them. We had 100% success with validating our needs on the ground as soon as we took it to the community, to the local people. I heard the previous speakers as well. A lot of them are speaking on the subject that stakeholder engagement on the ground at the local level engagement. It is very important to convert certain pledges that we have to actionable projects, whatever the scale might be. We have had 60% increase in impact. And how do we measure that increase in impact? Is when we see communities taking charge of their own initiatives, when we see GIS systems measuring low greenhouse gas emissions, or for that matter, traffic being reduced through public and shared transport systems. There is around 80% of localized ownership. Certain markers tell us that, yes, these roads are being protected right now. The security around these roads is being protected by the community itself. Next slide, please. So the two ingredients that we right now identify is, one, how to create bankable projects through your measurements, through your actual frameworks that we have prepared since Bali Declaration. We've worked on this since 2007, and we've now a bankable actual framework. So what you actually see that is bankable on paper, it becomes investable in reality. Now I'm going to talk about investable and how it becomes investable. It is basically you have IFC, an arm of the World Bank, working with you, financing you. And this is specifically for the youth, for all of us, that there are many a project that you can finance through different grants if you have bankable actual figures to report. How do they support this better? When they are co-designed with the most affected people. For us, the fragility and conflict that is in the region around Afghanistan and Pakistan, it was the most difficult task to actually give the people an idea that this is how it is beneficial to them. I've listed down some of the impacts that it does. I've gone through them as well. So it define a relevance of the projects, to the local community, to the general public, and even to the donors. It strengthens the environmental and social safeguards that we used to build around those projects. These are very important because slight impact, we are sitting on a very rich marble zone, and slight impact has given us huge dividends. For example, we used to lose 80% of the marble production that is in the region due to TNT being used as a primary source of extracting the stone. And now, not only is that environmentally unviable, it's also extremely dangerous to the community. So working together with them, we have reduced it to much more modern ways, laser cutting, and that has not only reduced the environmental impact, it has actually reduced quite a bit of the fatalities that are occurring in this region. So we have benefit sharing models that attract people as well. We're talking about public-private partnership. With embedded local financing, you have land, labor, and community as three different pillars to manage. And obviously, the outcome is low resistance, and specifically in areas like ours, and which it also leads to strengthen project ownerships and gives you local context. As I always say in these scenarios, your absolute gem of a knowledge base is your latent learning. Your latent learning of any region, if you have that, you can actually implement projects anywhere, but as long as you're able to listen to the locals, living over there. Next slide, please. So on my last slide, I just wanted to identify that, there are key enablers for developing countries and us who are with us from developing countries who can actually work on these. There is a huge lack of capacity. Cross-pollination of ideas is very much needed. Such platform where we sit together, we discuss, and I've learned a lot from my compatriots today. They act as platforms. With digital age now, we even have them to, we can sit in a comfort of our home and listen to them. But the second most important part is the development of data systems. We need actionable project results, actionable data to actually work with. Now, this not only attracts financing, but it makes your case stronger. Obviously, the whole of the investments over there are going to be policy coherent because we want every national chapter to recognize with what they bring to the table and how they can improve it further. That makes our global goals. You know, the sum is larger than the sum is greater than the sum of its parts. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And obviously, de-risking mechanisms are attached to it. We have guarantees, we have insurances. I have seen blended financing working wonderful with IFC projects, donor support and carbon markets now with the with the moving slowly to the zone where we're discovering carbon markets as well. So be on the lookout for these factors as you develop your national and international pledges. And there are tangible and bankable projects embedded in all of this. This sort of a thinking. So if you adapt that sort of thinking, we have seen wonders with it while we develop the economic corridor up here from Pakistan all the way to Dushanbe. That would be all from my side. Thank you, everyone, and special thanks to Catalea for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Imran, for your insightful presentation. Without further ado, we are going to give the floor to Mr. James Bowser, who's the Innovation Chair and the School of International Futures, Intergenerational Fairness in Cities Community of Practice. He's also the Next Generation Foresight Practitioners Steering Committee member and an adjunct fellow of Macquarie University. Mr. James, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a really great set of presentations, and it's great to have a fellow Australian, Michelle Howie, within this group as well. I've been, enlightened as to a number of challenges and opportunities in the pursuit of a low carbon future, and I hope to also complement, but also further impart knowledge to that effect in my presentation. So what I'm really focusing on, and this was sort of alluded to in the introduction was just given about me, is one of the things I spend a lot of time focusing on in policymaking is long-term durable solutions, as in how do we not get caught up in narrow-minded short-termist policymaking mentalities. And if we want to achieve sustainable development and resilience, that is inherently a long-term agenda that requires an intergenerational perspective. And so next slide, please. So intergenerational fairness, just very quickly, is allowing people of all ages to meet their own needs and also meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And as you can tell, it is a core precept of sustainable development. And what's important is we actually make sure we don't make decisions now that are maladaptation or malmitigation, that sort of mitigate or adapt to climate change, but actually have longer term compromises that actually outweigh the positive benefits in the short term. And this sort of key principle is something that I'm very passionate about and spend a lot of time exploring in the context of policymaking practices. Next slide. And so ultimately, a policy is intergenerationally unfair for a number of reasons, including those below. But importantly, it really helps restrict the choice of people in the future. If we make decisions today with regard to, locking in on carbon-intensive assets for energy markets because it is politically expedient, we actually really restrict the opportunities and the choices of future generations with regard to more sustainable energy sources, because markets and regulation locks in and captures particular energy sources without actually enabling optionality and choice, and therefore sustainability and resilience of future generations. And ultimately, as per the final point at the end of that list there, it increases the chance of inequality being passed through time if we have short-term expedient sustainable development policy, for example, in energy policy, but also with regard to urban design and matters of the circular economy and other areas of sustainable development practice. Next slide. And so ultimately what this requires is anticipatory leadership, which is the ability to really think long term. We need to move beyond simple forecasting, which is based on a sort of assumptions that exist today that may not exist into the future, and actually really think about foresight, which, as people have alluded to today, requires a very substantial degree of participation and multi-stakeholder engagement to get diverse perspectives that enable us to be truly anticipatory for the long term in a very informed manner. And so dealing with long-term complexity and uncertainty inevitably requires robust participatory governance and multi-stakeholder engagement. And that's where we move beyond kind of the traditional technocratic perspectives associated with forecasting and really begin to think about foresight, which is a more qualitative endeavor, generally speaking. It also is very democratic in nature. And if we can blend the best of technocratic and democratic, we can make long-term intergenerationally fair decisions that deal with complexity and uncertainty. Next slide. And so unfortunately though, we often end up in that bottom row there, which is where we have kind of a bit of change, we get excited, but then it falls back down again, and we go up and down, and at best we sort of muddle our way through incrementalism to achieve sort of long-term change. At worst, we don't really progress. We kind of just get caught in cycles of short-termism. And if we want to achieve sort of durable change, as per that top row there, we need to really think about how we sort of enable short-term stickiness of ideas, medium-term entrenchment, and long-term expansion, how we sort of build the roadmap that actually enables durable change with a long-term perspective. And in policymaking, particularly in sustainable development, this is very, very important. And if we don't do this, we will inevitably create intergenerationally unfair policies. Next slide. So unfortunately, we don't have a habit of doing that. And what I'm trying to talk about today is how we might begin to reconsider policymaking with an intergenerationally fair lens. Next slide. So as I mentioned before, the three ingredients I really want to focus on today with regard to sustainable policymaking is this idea of sort of achieving short-term lock-in that produces a stickiness that is a lever that is easy to pull but hard to reverse. It is about creating policy windows that grab the attention of the populace and politicians, while also being something that is hard to reverse. And ultimately, that helps us transition to an idea of entrenchment of new ideas and concepts, particularly when you bring together broad coalitions that may have traditionally conflicted and begin to find co-benefits and synergies in the pursuit of sustainable development outcomes while minimizing the trade-offs between coalitions of individuals and stakeholders involved in policymaking. And ultimately, this creates a level of self-reinforcement that helps expand long-term systemic change in the way we design and implement policies. And so this heuristic of stickiness, entrenchment, and expansion is very key to begin thinking about long-termism in an effective, systematic way. Next slide, please. So ultimately what you end up with is sort of down in the graph down there, at the bottom. You have to think sort of about short-term stickiness, which is a lever that's easy to pull, hard to reverse, that gets entrenched over time, which helps self-reinforce and increase returns, and ultimately expand over time, which is a positive feedback loops for the future. And so what the acronym normally for that is actually LISP. So lock-in, increasing returns, self-reinforcing, and positive feedback, which, as you can see at the table at the bottom there, exists over these ideas of stickiness, entrenchment, and expansion. Next slide. And so in that sense, we then begin to really explore what the prerequisites for it are, as you can see there. And I've covered these earlier. So we'll jump to the next slide and begin to look at an applied example about what this looks like in practice. So what ultimately we need to think about in practice is stickiness is a matter of achieving lock-in, which can actually happen when you sort of deal with the very practical day-to-day factors that the constituents and the polity and the politicians are interested in. Entrenchment is sort of where you sort of begin to think about the broader political environment and the broader economic environment as well. And that's where you bring together coalitions and co-benefits that enable entrenchment of change. And the expansion of ideas is based on personal factors that really begin to change the norms and values that allow people to change their expectations and the demands from the government and relevant power brokers. Next slide. And this is another way of thinking about the exact same thing, sort of cutting through the practical, political, and personal factors for long-term change. Next slide. And ultimately, then what we want to do is then think about what does it actually mean? That's kind of a nice theoretical heuristic, and that's a good place to start. But what does it actually mean when the rubber hits the road? And we actually have to help design tangible policy craft that actually helps enable stickiness, entrenchment, and expansion over the long term, and therefore create durable change. And so in the next slide, you'll see the way I've sort of thought about this is, and next slide, sorry, is that we need to sort of think about this typology here, this sort of policy mix topology, as a matter of practical, political, and personal matters. And so how do we sort of have an intervention logic and tools in the immediate term that are more tangible policy means that really helps to lock in a policy window that helps drive short-term change, but ultimately that sort of then bridges to the broader coalition building and co-benefit creation of the goals and objectives, which are the political factors, and then settings and calibrations, which are very targeted on the ground specifications, help really expand and create durable change and positive feedback loops for everyday people. That helps enable long-term change. And so when we ultimately bring everything down to a policymaking topology, as we see here, we begin to be able to actually break down the political, practical, and personal factors that really help actually generate that stickiness, entrenchment, and expansion for the long term. So next slide, please. So here's a really good case study we can look at to sort of ground our thinking with regard to a real world case study. And in particular, what we saw in Germany was actually very interesting, particularly in the late 2000s, where Germany was actually very, very good at increasing rooftop solar. And one of the practical factors that Germany was able to really ground itself in to produce a stickiness that helped everyday people were just sort of the basic instruments, so the policy tools that helped actually reduce the costs of solar for everyday people, including German subsidies of long-term contracts for German energy users, and also the ability to sort of actually feed in solar energy into the grid and make money off it at the retail, not the wholesale rate, which actually helped guarantee higher returns for Germans. And so in this sense, you had sort of a very set of practical factors that produced a stickiness for change and really got the German public interested. Now, they weren't necessarily thinking of intergenerational fairness when they sort of helped latch onto this policy and help sort of engage with solar energy, but those sort of short-termist kind of mentalities of, well, I can save money and I get subsidies for it, why not? And I can make a bit of money as well through the feed-in tariff. Well, that sort of was what motivated a level of stickiness, which actually then moved quite conveniently into people realizing actually there's a broad co-benefit and there's a sort of a broad range of economic benefits that I actually really get from solar. And what this meant actually is it became a bit of a self-reinforcing feedback loop, because people began to realize that there's actually lots of financial benefits to solar energy. And because of government subsidies, there's actually more demand in the market, and more suppliers responded to that demand, and ultimately then actually helped lower prices just through pure market forces over time. And so in that sense, what you end up getting was actually, because people jumped onto the co-benefits, they built broader coalitions with each other, which actually, due to economics, really helped entrench sort of the desire for solar energy, because you overcame those broader political and economic concerns with regard to economics by actually jumping from the stickiness into the entrenchment factors. And ultimately what this led to was sort of people building, sort of installing solar in their neighborhoods en masse. And we actually know from empirical research, generally speaking, if there's lots of solar on the street, more people without solar want to get it. And so in that sense, we actually had sort of a normalization of the technology uptake in Germany. So in that sense, we saw a clear sort of expansion and long-term durability that was very self-reinforcing and ultimately led to a very strong positive feedback loop in the market with regard to the uptake and the pricing of solar. So there's a really good practical example right there where practical, political, and personal factors, respectively, were able to enable stickiness, entrenchment, and expansion for long-term change. And the next slide, please. And ultimately, this is what it looks like in practice. This is the simple summary. You've got the lever that is pulled but hard to reverse, and then you've got the entrenchment factors, that sort of the stepping stones, which help lock in and really help self-reinforce the benefits of solar energy in Germany. And the expansion over time, the particular settings and calibrations meant it became normalized and diffused among the market more generally, which led to durable change that was very, very hard to reverse. So in the next slide, then we'll talk about Singapore, and we'll look at more sort of a climate adaptation example. So one of the great examples in Singapore is the Cooling Singapore project, which is really driven by the idea of co-benefits and community well-being in the context of extreme heat and climate change adaptation, and really looks specifically at biophilic design that really helps create nice public spaces for people, but also support for low-income communities as well and low-income demographics, which helps provide social co-benefits as well. So the next slide, please. Ultimately, then, you can actually once again overlap the political, personal, and practical factors for a healthy policy mix that helped enable stickiness, entrenchment, and expansion over time. So the practical factors were the public and private investment in green and blue infrastructure, and the adaptation of planning laws for then property developers to actually want to build nice apartments, which then ultimately led to social and economic co-benefits and people's property prices increasing conveniently. And that sort of then, that entrenchment jumped into an expansion with regard to people therefore normalizing and expecting, sort of urban greening and blue-green infrastructure to be a mainstay of livability and urban design within Singapore. And so that's sort of where, once again, you had that stickiness, entrenchment, and expansion demonstrated in the climate adaptation example. Next slide, please. And ultimately, here's the same graph again, but applied to the Cooling Singapore example. So once again, stickiness, entrenchment, and expansion. So I'm running out of time here, so I might just wrap up now. So next slide, please. And there's the bibliography for those of you who are keen readers. It's quite big. If you want to take a screenshot of that, you're welcome to, and do some reading in your own time. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much for all this intervention. It was really interesting, all your insightful presentation. Since we are running a little bit out of time, I think just before we wrap up, I would like to open the floor for a very short Q&A session. So maybe 1 or 2 questions. So if you have any question or reflection, you can write them on the chat or raise your hand if it's easier for you. And then we are going to end the session.
I actually do have one question, because after hearing so many handful stuff from all the panelists, actually, my question is very simple and straightforward. From your perspective, which methods have been justified as the most effective to unlock enablers' power to triple climate action? Sorry.
I'm happy to start if no one wants to go. So basically, I'm a big believer in, you've got to sort of, humans are inherently short-termist. So how do you sort of appeal to the short-termist nature of humans, but also, as I talked about in my presentation, help bridge that towards medium to long-term change. So you have to sort of some way, appeal to sort of the reptilian part of our brain that looks at self-interest, economics, and looking after ourselves. That's just sort of a reality, whether you like it or not. But importantly, how does that ultimately, in the longer term, plan to be bridged into sort of longer term thinking that helps transform markets and therefore sort of policy making expectations? So, there is a level of psychology, I think, that's very important in sustainability and transitions, and sometimes in very technocratic decision making, we can forget that. So I think the psychology and sort of tapping into that is very important. And in, sort of very, I guess, sort of policy wonk terms, a lot of it's about economics and how do you sort of, the hip pocket issues as politicians talk about. How do you save money and help people make money? That's always a good sort of place to start, whether you like it or not. It's how humans generally operate. So that's sort of my answer to that question.
I can take the floor as the next, as I find this question really important for young people, as I see that cooperation is actually amplifying the actions. And climate action here is not an exception. When we look at BRICS, which is actually a community of developing nations, we see that even some states that are actually falling behind in terms of climate action just don't have other choice. They are following the group, the leaders of the group in climate action. Definitely this year with COP30 happening in Brazil, we see Brazilian leadership in this sphere, but also Chinese leadership in green transition, and India leading on solar track, and also sustainable agri-food systems being developed in South Africa and India and neighboring states. So we see that these collaborations, exchange of practices within different platforms, including BRICS, Youth Energy Agency, which unites young experts, and including some global platforms like United Nations, UNFCCC, conferences of the parties. We see that there definitely collaborations are driving the climate action forward. And here I agree with James. When it comes to economics, we see that climate economics is actually also developing faster and amplifying the action faster than climate politics, which is actually falling behind. So therefore, I think that we need to focus on these like less formal structures and more collaborations between non-state actors, also between companies and organizations, driving the action forward. Thank you.
Well, given the truest fact that we don't have other incoming questions, then I would love to thank you, send my thankfulness to PCCB Network team again, and also our PCCB member Lillian from Philippines, and also all of these guest speakers invited by Climate and UV Society, as well as PCCB Network. Thank you so much again for joining today's meeting. And I'm going to hand over the microphone to Naru.
Thank you, Catalia. So as we close in this session, let us take a moment to reflect on what has been unlocked today, not just knowledge, but also possibility. We came together under the banner of a bold vision, tripling climate action, and by empowering the enablers of change. So we've heard powerful ideas and inspiring examples from Pakistan, Mongolia, Germany, and so much more, but ideas alone are not enough. What we need now is alignment, investment, and most importantly, collective action. So on behalf of Climate and UVS and the PCCB Network, we would like to thank you all for your participation, your passion, and your shared commitment to a better, greener, and more just world. Thank you so much, and have a nice day. Thank you.